Hi, it's Claire Yosa here from the EUVAT Action Team with an update. There's been a lot of discussion in the last few days because HMRC, the UK Tax Authority, has published an addendum to their guidelines for the EU digital VAT rules. We met with the senior representatives of Treasury and HMRC again late last year with David Gauke, who is the Treasury Secretary in the UK. They promised they would do everything in their power to create simplifications that would allow people to keep trading. Here's the two things they've done. The first one is they've said if the payment processor doesn't give you the address, that was a simplification we negotiated early last year, then you can use the customer's self-declared address as evidence of where the customer is if you're below the UK VAT threshold. The issue with this is that it will help some businesses. In many cases, the payment processor is not giving us the address details, but if somebody's bought a low price download from you, the administrative burden of having to email each customer to find out where they live is really high. It's disproportionate still. Also, it's a very low commitment purchase. The likelihood of the customer wanting to give you their address by email is really low. You also then fall into a data protection nightmare because you have personal details for your clients inside your email system and they shouldn't be there. So we can understand that they were severely restricted within the rules of the EU digital VAT laws, but we don't really feel that this makes an awful lot of difference. The second thing they've done, as we know, at the moment there is no threshold for the EU VAT rules. It is planned that the European Commission will propose one in their legislation at the end of this year. Until then, there is legally nothing that HMRC can do to bring in a threshold. So instead, they've brought in this fuzzy thing about, are you really a business or are you a hobby? Because what they found is that 95% of the VATMOS returns they were getting accounted for just 1% of the revenue, and many businesses were submitting nil returns. So they've got this fudge thing going on now, where if you feel your business is really, really small and you're only very occasionally making international sales, you can contact HMRC to find out whether or not you should be registering for VATMOS and turning your business upside down. Now, the problem with this is it's all kind of unofficial. It's all going to be done on a case-by-case basis. And you're still at risk if your business suddenly grows of having to register without realising. So again, this is done from the best of intentions, and it's the best that HMRC can do on a threshold without new legislation. But it doesn't really fix the problem. The thing is, HMRC has no power to fix this problem, but the British government and all the other governments in the European Union do. Each of them could go to the monthly ECOFIN meeting, which is the meeting of all the finance ministers in the EU, and say, look, this is a mess. Here's the hard data. Here are all the reasons why it's impossible for tiny businesses to comply without completely changing their business model and incurring disproportionate costs. Let's temporarily suspend the legislation for them while we bring in the new laws. They could do that this month. They are choosing not to. So please, if you're in the UK, read the HMRC guidance to make sure you're up to date with what's going on. And then wherever you are in the EU, please write to your finance minister. We've got a link for all their email addresses below this video today, and tell them you need them to table this at the ECOFIN meeting as a matter of urgency, that these rules are suspended for micro businesses while the new legislation is passed. At the moment, awareness levels are still so shockingly low, despite the EU patting itself on the back saying they're really high, which is nonsense. We estimate that over 95% of businesses are trading illegally, not aware of these rules. That's the only reason why the digital marketplace hasn't imploded. We need to keep the pressure up. The legislation won't even be proposed until later this year. It could then be another 3 or 4 years or more after that before it's passed and implemented, by which point we'll have closed our businesses down. What we've also been seeing as a trend over the last few weeks is that quite a few of the solutions who claimed they were fully compliant are actually not. So we're all still trading at risk. Please write to your finance minister, explain to them how this has hurt your business and specifically why you find it hard to comply, and tell them they need a trading threshold like the old distance selling thresholds for physical goods. They've got it there. ECOFIN could bring that in the next month if they choose to. They're choosing not to. They need to be hearing from thousands of businesses in your country this week. If you have any questions, come and find us on Facebook, EUVAT Action. I hope that update has helped, and I hope you have a very prosperous trading 2016.